When everything falls apart, most people panic. They react. They spiral. But not you. Not anymore. The disciplined mind doesn't chase chaos. It creates calm. When others crumble, you observe. When others complain, you execute. The rarest skill on earth is emotional control. And in this audiobook, you'll learn how to master it. You'll learn to stay calm when life burns down, to think when everyone else feels, and to move when others freeze. This is not motivation. This is mental training. Welcome to the disciplined mind.
Every battle begins in your mind. Before the world can defeat you, your thoughts will try to. The storm doesn't start outside, and it starts inside. And until you learn to control that storm, it will control you. You know what I'm talking about. That sudden rush of emotion, that anger, that panic, that fear. It feels automatic, but it isn't. It feels like reaction, but it's choice. You have a choice. Every single time. When someone disrespects you, you have a choice. When life blindsides you, you have a choice. When disappointment hits, you have a choice. To react or to respond. To lose control or to take command. That's the key. Emotional chaos is not random. It's practiced. You've trained your brain to explode, to complain, to overthink. And now we're going to train it to pause, to breathe, to choose calm instead of chaos. Because calm is not weakness. Calm is command. When you are calm, you think clearly. When you are calm, you move precisely. When you are calm, you win. The first law of control: pause before you react. The disciplined mind doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It pauses. That pause, that single moment, is where strength lives. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. You just need to pause. Here's how you do it. The 3-second rule. When emotion hits, stop. Count 3 slow breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Once, twice, 3 times. Those 3 seconds are your shield. Those 3 seconds are your power. Because in those 3 seconds, logic wakes up. And when logic wakes up, emotion loses control. You think you're losing control? You're just skipping the pause. You're reacting on impulse, not intelligence. And every time you do that, you hand your peace to someone else. You hand your power away. You hand your control away. You control it or it controls you. Say it again. You control it or it controls you. That's the truth you'll live by from this point forward. The second law: observe, don't absorb. When chaos erupts, most people absorb it. They take every word, every look, every insult personally. They carry it, they feed it, and that's why they break. You are not here to absorb chaos. You are here to observe it. When something upsets you, step back. Mentally, emotionally, physically. Look at the situation like a scientist. Detach from the emotion and study the cause. Ask, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What's the right move now? Observation breaks the pattern. Observation turns noise into data. Observation transforms reaction into power. You are not your anger. You are not your fear. You are not your emotion. You are the observer behind them. You are the calm eye inside the storm. That's the key. You don't need their apology. You don't need their permission. You just need control. Because when you master yourself, the world loses its power over you. The third law: train. Calm daily. Control is not built in crisis. It's built in routine. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your level of discipline. So train calm every day. When traffic gets bad, breathe. When someone talks over you, pause. When plans fall apart, observe. Don't react. Every moment of irritation is a rep. Every setback is a workout for your discipline. You don't need to wait for peace to appear. You practice it. You build calm like muscle. You condition it through repetition. That's how the disciplined mind is formed. Through daily microcontrol. Calm is not something you hope for. Calm is something you build. The fourth law: don't feed the fire. You can't control what happens to you, but you can always control what you feed. When chaos hits, most people feed it with attention, reaction, and emotion. They argue, they spiral, they post, they vent. And in doing so, they keep the storm alive. Stop feeding what you want to end. Silence is power. Stillness is control. When you refuse to feed emotion, it starves. So when your mind starts spinning, don't add words. Add breath. Don't add panic. Add patience. Don't add noise. Add awareness. That's how you win the battle within. You control it, or it controls you. Say it again. You control it, or it controls you. Real-world example. The controlled commander. Think about the people you respect the most. The leaders, the soldiers, the coaches. They never panic, they never shout, they never rush. Why? Because control is their discipline. They know emotion clouds judgment. They know calm creates clarity. They know leadership begins with self-mastery. When others lose their heads, they remain still. When others collapse, they observe. When others react, they execute. That's what makes them unstoppable. They've trained their mind to remain steady when everyone else shakes. That's what you're building here, not comfort, but composure. You don't need their validation. You don't need their understanding. You need discipline. Because the disciplined mind doesn't flinch. It calculates, it acts. Daily discipline drill. Every day test yourself. When you feel the surge of emotion, stop. Count to 3. Then decide calmly what needs to be done. That's the practice. That's the representative. And over time, your nervous system learns peace under pressure. When others break, you breathe. When others shout, you stay still. When others panic, you execute. That's emotional control in real time. That's what makes you dangerous in a world addicted to reaction. Because the louder the world gets, the quieter you become. And in that quiet, you hear everything. You see everything. And you move with precision. That's control. That's power. That's peace. Final reinforcement. You will face storms, you will face betrayal, you will face pressure, but from now on, you'll face them differently. You won't react, you'll respond. You won't panic, you'll pause. You won't crumble, you'll command. You control it or it controls you. And you choose control. Every time. You've just learned to control the inner storm. You've learned to breathe when others break. You've learned to pause when others panic. You've taken the first step in mastering yourself, but calm is only one form of control. Now it's time to go deeper. You've mastered your reactions. Now let's talk about the hidden source of stress in your life. The fight against what already is. You can't control the storm if you're busy denying that it's raining. That's the truth most people never face. They spend their lives arguing with reality, wishing it was easier, blaming others, rejecting the moment. And every time they do, they lose power. You can't change what you won't accept. That's the key. Most stress doesn't come from what happens to you. It comes from your refusal to accept that it happened. You think acceptance means weakness. You think acceptance means surrender. But it's the opposite. Acceptance is control. Acceptance is clarity. Acceptance is power. The first truth: resistance creates suffering. When you fight reality, you create suffering. You take pain, and you multiply it. You take a problem, and you give it permanence. Reality doesn't care if you complain. Reality doesn't care if you argue. Reality doesn't care if you cry about how unfair it is. Reality just is. It's neutral. It's cold. It's real. The question is not, why is this happening? The question is, what am I going to do now that it is? That's the disciplined response. You don't react to life. You face it. You don't demand comfort. You create control. Every moment you resist is a moment you could have used to rebuild. Every second you complain is a second you could have acted. Every time you say, "This shouldn't have happened," you're wasting energy that could make sure it doesn't happen again. You can't change what you won't accept. Say it again. You can't change what you won't accept. The second truth: acceptance activates power. The disciplined mind accepts the truth instantly, even if it's ugly. That's what separates the strong from the weak. Weak minds delay acceptance. They get emotional. They get stuck. They wait for comfort before they act. Strong minds accept fast. Strong minds don't need comfort. Strong minds don't need permission. They say, it happened. Now what? They adapt, they adjust, they act. That's the difference between stress and strength. Speed of acceptance. Think about the people who perform under pressure. Elite soldiers, surgeons, pilots, CEOs. When things go wrong, they don't argue with reality. They adapt to it, instantly. A soldier doesn't freeze when the mission changes. He recalculates. A surgeon doesn't complain when complications arise. She stabilizes. A CEO doesn't panic when the market shifts. He pivots. They all share the same principle: acceptance before action, because you can't lead yourself or anyone else if you're busy denying what's real. The mental trap of, it shouldn't be this way. This phrase, it shouldn't be this way, is poison. It's the voice of resistance. It's the sound of a weak mind trying to rewrite the present instead of responding to it. Every time you say it, you block your progress. You refuse to learn. You refuse to adapt. Stop saying, it shouldn't be this way. Start saying, it is this way. Now what? That's the difference between victims and leaders. Victims fight the past. Leaders face the present. You have a choice. Every single day, you can fight reality and stay stuck, or you can accept it and move forward. That's the key. Real-world application, the acceptance drill. Here's how you train it. Every time something unexpected happens, big or small, run this mental script. 1. Step 1. Name it. Say out loud what happened. Be direct, no emotion. It happened. 2. Step 2. Accept it. Say the words, this is real. I accept it. 3. Step 3. Act on it. Ask, what's the next best move? Then do that, nothing else. You don't need to feel okay to act. You don't need motivation. You need discipline. This is how elite performers stay calm in chaos. Not because they feel calm, but because they act calm. That's the secret. You can't change what you won't accept. And once you accept, the next move becomes clear. The discipline of reality. The disciplined mind doesn't live in fantasy. It doesn't wish. It works. It doesn't cry for fairness. It adapts to facts. That's mental strength. Not pretending things are fine. Not running from pain. But facing what is. Without flinching. You've been told that positivity fixes everything, but forced positivity is just denial with better marketing. You don't need positivity, you need honesty. You don't need comfort, you need clarity. Because when you see reality as it is, you gain control over what it can become. You can't change what you won't accept. Example, the calm commander. Picture an elite commander on the battlefield. A mission goes wrong, the plan collapses. His team looks to him. Does he panic? Number, does he curse the situation? Number, he accepts instantly. He sees it, he owns it, he acts. That's leadership, that's discipline. The faster you accept, the faster you recover. The faster you accept, the faster you win. Acceptance is the switch that turns chaos into command. You have a choice: to fight what is, or to face it, to complain or to calculate, to resist or to respond. That's the key. Reinforcement. Power comes after peace. Peace isn't found by escaping reality. It's found by accepting it fully, without losing control. When you stop arguing with what's already happened, you create space for action. When you stop resisting, you start rebuilding. When you stop wishing, you start winning. That's how calm becomes power. That's how acceptance becomes control. You can't change what you won't accept. Say it again, and this time, mean it. You can't change what you won't accept, because once you accept it, the storm loses its grip. You can finally see. You can finally think. You can finally move forward. Final drill. Next time reality hits, stop, breathe, say, this is real. Then act. It's that simple and that hard. Most people will never master it. They'll keep resisting, keep complaining, keep wasting energy on things they can't control, but not you. You're building a disciplined mind, a calm mind, a mind that moves through chaos with clarity, You've learned how to accept what is. You've learned how to stop fighting the unchangeable. And that makes you unstoppable. You can't control every event, but you can control how fast you accept it. That's where true power begins. You've stopped fighting reality. You've accepted what is, and that's the foundation of power. But acceptance alone isn't enough. You must also control how you feel within that reality. You've mastered the art of facing truth. Now, let's learn the discipline of emotional detachment. How to feel deeply without losing control. You've accepted reality. You've learned not to fight what's already true. Now comes the next step, the hardest step, learning to detach from emotion without detaching from life itself. Because most people confuse emotional detachment with not caring. They think being calm means being cold. They think control means suppression. They're wrong. You're not removing emotion, you're mastering it. You're not avoiding feeling, you're directing it. You're not heartless, you're disciplined. That's the key. The first truth: emotion is energy, not identity. Your emotions are not who you are, they're signals. They're data, they're information. But when you believe your emotions, you become their slave. When anger speaks, you obey. When fear whispers, you hide. When sadness shows up, you stop moving. That's not living, that's reacting. You must separate what you feel from what you do. You can feel anger and still choose patience. You can feel fear and still move forward. You can feel pain and still stay composed. That's detachment, that's mastery, that's power. Emotion is meant to inform you, not to control you. You can't stop emotion from arising, but you can stop it from running your life. You can't control when the wave comes, but you can control whether it knocks you down. You have a choice. Always. The second truth: detachment doesn't mean disconnection. Let's be clear. Detachment is not disconnection. It's not apathy. It's not numbness. Detachment means staying in life, but not drowning in it. It means engaging without being enslaved. It means caring deeply, but never losing yourself in the process. A disciplined mind doesn't need to stop feeling it, it just stops reacting. You can love someone without losing yourself. You can care without being consumed. You can listen without absorbing their chaos. That's detachment. That's balance. That's discipline. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need their apology to move on. You don't need their peace to protect your own. Because emotional control is your responsibility, not their reward. That's the key. The real-world example: the focused athlete. Think about an elite athlete. She feels pressure, exhaustion, and fear, but you'd never know it. Why? Because she's detached from the noise. She feels the emotion, but she doesn't become it. The crowd cheers or boos. She doesn't react. The opponent mocks. She doesn't flinch. She channels everything into focus, into precision, into execution. That's detachment in motion. That's emotional control. That's what you're training for. To stay centered no matter what the environment throws at you. You don't avoid emotion, you own it. You convert it into power. The emotional loop. You must break. Here's the trap most people live in: emotion, reaction, regret. Emotion again. A constant cycle of noise and reaction. Someone disrespects you, you react. You regret reacting when you feel guilt. Guilt becomes anger. The loop continues. The disciplined mind breaks that loop. How? By inserting awareness between emotion and reaction. That's where detachment lives, that space, that pause. It's where strength grows. When something triggers you, say to yourself, I feel it, but I don't feed it. That's your mantra. Feel it. Don't feed it. You don't need to suppress it. You just don't need to obey it. You don't need to explode to prove you care. You don't need to panic to prove you're human. You need to stay calm to prove you're in control. That's detachment. The practical drill, the 10-second reset. Here's how you train emotional detachment in real life. When emotion hits, pause. Take one slow, deep breath. Then count to 10. Silently. During those 10 seconds, do not act. Do not speak. Do not move. Just observe. Let the emotion come. Let it pass. Watch it like a cloud drifting by. When the 10 seconds are over, ask yourself one question. What does discipline require of me right now? Then do that, not what your feelings demand. It's not about emotion, it's about execution. It's not about comfort, it's about control. Do that long enough and your brain learns. Emotion does not equal action. You stop reacting, you start leading. The difference between passion and chaos. There's a thin line between passion and chaos. Passion is energy guided by discipline. Chaos is energy ruled by emotion. Most people call their chaos passion, but they're just undisciplined. They think intensity equals impact. It doesn't. Controlled emotion is far more powerful than raw emotion. Think about fire. Uncontrolled, it destroys. Controlled, it gives warmth, energy, and direction. Your emotions work the same way. You can burn everything, or you can build something. That's your choice. You have a choice. Always. To burn or to build. To react or to remain. To lose control or to lead yourself. That's the key. The quiet strength of detachment. Detachment makes you dangerous in the best way because nothing rattles you, nothing gets under your skin, nothing makes you lose your composure. People around you will start to notice. You'll stop explaining yourself. You'll stop defending yourself. You'll stop chasing approval. Because you've detached from the opinions of others, you no longer depend on their validation to know your worth. You no longer let their chaos dictate your peace. You've detached not from life, but from noise. And in that quiet, you've found strength. Reinforcement. Feel it, don't feed it. Remember this. Detachment isn't about feeling less, man. It's about reacting less. It's about keeping emotion in its place. As a tool, not a tyrant. You can feel deeply. You can care fully. You can love strongly. But never let those emotions control your direction. Feel it. Don't feed it. Observe it. Don't obey it. Channel it. Don't chase it. That's emotional discipline. That's power. Final drill and transition. Here's your challenge. For the next 24 hours, every time you feel triggered, pause for 10 seconds. Say the words, I feel it, but I don't feed it. Then choose the disciplined response. Do it again tomorrow and again the next day until it becomes automatic. Because when emotion loses control over you, peace begins. When emotion stops leading you, clarity begins. And when clarity begins, life changes. You've learned to detach from emotion without detaching from life. You're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You're no longer impulsive. You're intentional. That's the mark of discipline. You've learned to stand firm in the storm without closing your heart. You've learned to lead yourself, not your feelings. You've mastered detachment. Now it's time to turn that discipline outward, toward the world around you. You've learned how to control your emotions. Next, you'll learn how to control your reactions to people, because calm means nothing if you give it away to the wrong crowd. You've learned to control the storm inside you. You've learned to detach from emotion without disconnecting from life. Now comes the battlefield that breaks most people. The world of other people's opinions, disrespect, and noise. Because discipline means nothing if you hand it away to anyone who pushes your buttons. You can't master yourself if every stranger still controls your mood. So here's the truth you need to hear. Most people don't deserve your reaction. They haven't earned it. They haven't earned your energy, your attention, or your peace. You have to stop giving the unworthy a front row seat to your emotions. That's the key. The first truth. Not everyone deserves access to you. The undisciplined mind believes every opinion matters. It doesn't. Most people speak from their own insecurity, not wisdom. They project their weakness, not truth. You have a choice, always, to absorb their chaos or to protect your calm. You don't owe anyone a reaction. Not your boss's outburst, not your friend's jealousy, not a stranger's comment online. You are not obligated to respond to everything that demands your attention. Silence is not weakness. It's strategy. You control who gets access to your energy. You control who gets access to your time. You control who gets access to your peace. You don't need their permission to protect your focus. You don't need their understanding to walk away. That's the key. The second truth: reaction is reward. Every time you react, you reward them. That's how manipulators win, like they feed off your reaction. They want to see you emotional, defensive, angry, because that means they've gained control. They've invaded your mind, and you gave them the key. Here's the truth: you don't need to fight every battle. You just need to win the war for your focus. When you stop reacting, you take away their fuel. You stop feeding their ego. You stop giving power to what never deserved it. That's emotional dominance. That's what real control looks like. When someone tries to provoke you, don't respond. Observe. Watch the trap form. Smile inwardly. Then choose stillness. That silence is strength. That composure is power. That restraint is victory. Because the strongest person in the room isn't the loudest, it's the calmest. The real-world example: the stoic leader. Think about great leaders and the real ones. They face insult, pressure, betrayal, but they don't flinch. They don't defend every rumor. They don't justify every decision. They don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding them. They're focused on the mission, not the noise. When you operate with purpose, you stop reacting to the petty. You realize that reacting to everything makes you small. You realize that not reacting keeps you powerful. A disciplined leader knows every reaction costs energy. Every argument drains focus. Every distraction delays progress. So they protect their mind like a fortress. And that's exactly what you must do. The emotional trap: validation. Let's talk about the biggest emotional trap: validation. You want people to understand you. You want people to see your value. You want people to respect you. But here's the truth: you don't need them to. Their misunderstanding doesn't reduce your truth. Their disrespect doesn't remove your worth. Their silence doesn't mean you're invisible. You don't need their permission to believe in yourself. You don't need their applause to stay disciplined. You don't need their agreement to keep moving. When you chase validation, you surrender power. When you stop chasing it, you reclaim control. That's the shift. That's the transformation. That's the key. The practical drill: the 24-hour rule. Here's how to master this. The next time someone provokes you, tries to pull you into their chaos, don't react. Wait 24 hours before you respond. Why? Because emotion fades, but truth remains. During those 24 hours, watch how your perspective changes. What felt urgent yesterday looks irrelevant today. What felt personal yesterday looks small today. You realize most conflicts die if you stop feeding them. You realize peace is a byproduct of patience. That's control. That's discipline. So train it every day, every moment. The psychology of power. People who can't control themselves need to control others. That's why they provoke. They want to pull you into emotional reaction, because that's how they feel important. But when you stay calm, you deny them importance. You deny them validation. You deny them control. Your peace becomes their confusion. Your silence becomes their defeat. You don't need to prove them wrong, you just need to stay focused long enough for results to speak for you. You don't win by arguing, you win by outgrowing. You don't conquer people. You conquer your reaction to them. That's emotional maturity. That's quiet dominance. The inner shift: from proving to protecting. You've been trained to prove yourself, to prove your worth, to prove your point. But that's energy wasted, because discipline isn't about proving, and it's about protecting. Protecting your focus, protecting your standards, protecting your peace. You don't need to convince anyone who's committed to misunderstanding you. You just need to keep building, keep improving, keep moving. The results will speak when the time is right. The loudest thing you can say is success spoken in silence. That's the mindset of emotional warriors. They don't bark, they build. The quiet rule of strength. Remember this: you are not obligated to respond to everything that touches your emotions. Your reaction is your power. Spend it wisely. Not everyone deserves a response. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Not everyone deserves access to your peace. You have to be ruthless about protecting your calm, because calm is rare, calm is expensive, Calm is strength. Don't trade your peace for cheap arguments. Don't trade your focus for ego battles. Don't trade your discipline for temporary satisfaction. You have a choice. Every day, every moment. You can react or you can rise. You can argue or you can advance. You can get loud or you can get better. That's the key. Final reinforcement. When you stop reacting to people who haven't earned your reaction, everything changes. You save time, you save energy, you save focus. And that energy, you redirect it into your goals, into your habits, into your growth. That's where transformation happens, not in arguments, but in action. You don't need to fight noise. You just need to stay silent long enough for your results to become undeniable. That's real power. That's quiet dominance. That's emotional control at its peak. You've learned to stop reacting to the noise around you. Now it's time to build something stronger. Consistency. Because without consistency, control fades. Without structure, discipline dies. You've learned control. You've learned composure. Now it's time to build unbreakable habits. The world is loud. The world is impatient. The world will push you hard. It will test your patience, your focus, your faith. But here's the truth. When the world pushes, the disciplined don't move. They stay still. They stay centered. They stay grounded. Because stillness is not the absence of motion. It's the mastery of it. It's the ability to move only when it matters. It's the power to wait when others rush, to observe when others panic, to think when others shout. That's emotional control in action. That's the core of the disciplined mind. The first lesson, the world will test you. Let's be real. Every day you're going to be tested. Your patience, your composure, your belief in yourself, the traffic, the deadlines, the betrayal, the criticism, the doubt, the silence. All of it is a test, and every test asks the same question. Can you stay still when chaos demands a reaction? That's the real exam. That's where the weak break and the disciplined rise. The world will push your buttons. The world will provoke your emotions. The world will try to pull you into its storm. But you have a choice. You always have a choice. You can react like everyone else or respond like no one else. You can lose control or you can lead yourself. That's the key. The power of stillness. Stillness is not passive. Stillness is active discipline. It's a decision to conserve power instead of wasting it. Think of a lion. A lion doesn't chase everything that moves. It waits, it observes. It moves only when the timing is perfect. That's why it wins. Because power without patience is wasted, and discipline is patience in motion. When the world pushes you, when life throws confusion, panic, or pressure, stillness is your weapon. Stillness is how you keep your clarity when everyone else loses theirs. You don't react to the storm. You become the calm within it. That's what separates amateurs from professionals, followers from leaders, and victims from warriors. The 60-second rule. Here's your drill. Next time something frustrates you, don't react immediately. Take 60 seconds of stillness. No words, no movement, just breathe. In that stillness, you'll notice something powerful. You'll start to see clearly. You'll start to think rationally. You'll start to regain control. Because in those 60 seconds, emotion cools and logic returns. And logic, not emotion, is what wins long term. That's the discipline of control. That's the stillness that builds power. You have to practice it daily. Traffic jam, stillness. Disagreement, stillness. Failure, stillness. Every still moment builds the muscle of control, and that muscle will carry you through everything life throws at you. The real-world example, the calm professional. Think about elite soldiers. They're trained not to react, not to panic, not to move unless movement serves purpose. When everything explodes around them, literally, they slow down, they breathe, they assess, then they act. Precisely, efficiently, effectively. That's what makes them elite. They're not faster than everyone, they're calmer than everyone. The same principle applies to you, in business, in relationships, in life. Stillness is your advantage. Calmness is your edge. Focus is your weapon. When others are running in circles, you'll be 3 moves ahead because you chose patience over panic. That's mastery. That's control. That's the disciplined mind in action. The illusion of urgency. Here's the trap. The world tries to convince you everything is urgent. Every text, every email, every crisis, every comment. Everything feels like it needs your attention right now. And that's how people lose control tonight, by treating noise like priority. But you know better now. You know that urgency is often an illusion created by people who can't plan, can't think, can't wait. You don't have to move just because the world is moving. You don't have to rush just because others are rushing. Stillness is how you rise above chaos. Stillness is how you lead while others react. Stillness is how you separate what's important from what's just loud. That's the skill most people never learn. The skill to wait for the right moment without losing focus. The inner strength of stillness. Stillness requires strength. Weak minds panic when there's silence. They rush because waiting makes them anxious. They fill space with noise because they fear being alone with their thoughts. But disciplined minds love stillness. Because stillness is clarity, stillness is confidence, stillness is power. You don't need to fill every silence with action. You don't need to fix every situation instantly. You don't need to prove you're doing something. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is wait. Observe. Hold. That's not laziness, that's leadership. You're not reacting, you're recalibrating. You're not freezing, you're focusing. You're not avoiding, you're aligning. That's the shift. That's the discipline. That's the key. The emotional benefit. When you master stillness, stress begins to disappear. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop fighting everything. You stop panicking. You stop overthinking. You stop rushing into decisions driven by emotion. Instead, you start choosing clarity. You start seeing solutions. You start operating from strength, not survival. That's the emotional transformation. That's the power of calm. That's the quiet confidence that no chaos can touch. The discipline challenge. Here's your challenge. Practice stillness for 7 days. When something goes wrong, pause. When someone provokes you, pause. When your plan falls apart, unpause. No instant reaction, no emotional decision, just stillness. Write down what you notice. Write down how much energy you save. Write down how differently people respond to your calm. You'll realize that stillness doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. You'll realize that stillness doesn't slow you down, it saves you from wasting time on the wrong things. That's control? That's mastery? You don't need to shout to prove strength. You don't need to rush to prove effort. You just need to stay still long enough to make the right move. That's the power everyone underestimates until they see the results. The core reminder. When the world pushes you, you stay still. When people doubt you, you stay still. When life tests you, you stay still. Because calm is your armor, patience is your weapon, and stillness is your advantage. Every storm wants a reaction. Don't give it one. Every critic wants attention. Don't give it any. Every problem wants panic. Don't feed it. You are not here to react. You are here to rise. That's the foundation of emotional control. That's the essence of quiet discipline. That's the mark of the disciplined mind. You've learned to stay still when the world pushes. Now, let's take that stillness and turn it into something even more powerful. Execution. Because calm without action is wasted potential. The next step is to move. Not from emotion, but from control. You've learned how to stay still when the world pushes. Now it's time to move. Not out of emotion, but out of control. Because emotion may start your engine, but discipline drives the distance. Most people let emotion dictate their direction. They act when they feel like it. They quit when they don't, and that's why they never go anywhere. But the disciplined mind, it doesn't wait for motivation. It doesn't beg for energy. It just executes every day, every time. That's what separates dreamers from doers, talkers from performers, and emotional thinkers from disciplined executors. The first truth. Emotion is temporary. Execution is permanent. Emotion is fleeting. It rises, it falls, it changes with the weather, with the crowd, with the mood. You feel unstoppable one day and useless the next. That's emotion. But execution? That's stable. That's built on systems, not feelings. That's powered by discipline, not dopamine. You have a choice every day to be driven by emotion or guided by execution. That's the choice that defines your life. Because every time you wait to feel ready, you teach your mind to depend on emotion. And every time you execute without feeling ready, you train your mind to obey discipline. That's the key. The mind follows what you train it to follow. If you only move when you feel motivated, you'll live like everyone else. Inconsistent, distracted, emotional. But if you move regardless of feeling, you'll separate yourself forever. That's what elite people do. They don't chase emotion, they execute regardless. The real-world example, the soldier's routine. Think about soldiers on the front line. They don't get to say, "I don't feel like it today." They don't get to skip discipline because they're tired, sad, or uninspired. They move by command, not by emotion. Because emotion doesn't keep you alive. Precision does. And precision is built on execution. You have to train yourself the same way. Not as a soldier in war, but as a soldier of focus, a soldier of discipline, a soldier of purpose. Wake up, move, execute, no questions, no delay. Because once your brain realizes that feelings don't decide your actions, your life becomes unstoppable. That's the shift. That's the power of execution over emotion. The trap of waiting to feel right. Most people waste their entire lives waiting. Waiting for inspiration. Waiting for confidence. Waiting for motivation. But here's the truth. Motivation is unreliable. It's emotional caffeine. It gives you a short rush, then leaves you empty. If you depend on motivation, you'll live in cycles. Start fast, fade faster. You'll have big goals, but small results. Because you were trained to wait for a feeling instead of building a system. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to start. You don't need energy. You just need momentum. That's the key. Discipline creates the feeling people wait for. Action creates the confidence emotion promises. You don't think your way into discipline. You act your way into it. That's execution. The system, structure, over mood. Let's get practical. If you want to master execution, you need structure. A system that works when you don't feel like it. A schedule that moves you forward regardless of how you feel. That means setting rules. Wake up time. Workout time. Work time, sleep time. You follow it whether you're inspired or exhausted. Because when your schedule becomes non-negotiable, your results become inevitable. Emotion says, "I don't feel like it." Discipline says, "It doesn't matter." Emotion asks, "Do I have the energy?" Discipline answers, "I'll create it." That's how execution wins. That's how you build unstoppable momentum. You don't need to feel motivated when you're already in motion. You just need to stay consistent long enough for discipline to take over. The emotional saboteur. Emotions lie, they whisper excuses wrapped in logic. They say, "Rest today, you deserve it." They say, "You'll start tomorrow." They say, "This one time won't matter." But every one time matters, every skipped rep, every delayed decision, every lost day. Each one weakens the foundation you're building. You have to see emotion for what it is, a test. Every time you feel resistance, it's not a signal to stop. It's a signal to execute. That's the key mental flip. When emotion rises, execution must follow. When resistance hits, movement begins. That's how warriors think. That's how builders rise. That's how disciplined minds win. The drill, 5-minute rule. Here's a habit that rewires everything. The 5-minute rule. When you don't want to do something, do it for just 5 minutes. No pressure, no overthinking. Just start. 5 minutes of movement kills hesitation. Because once you start, emotion shifts. Once you begin, discipline takes over. You'll realize your body isn't tired, your emotion is lazy. And the only way to defeat lazy emotion is action. That's why we say replace emotion with execution. Don't debate, don't delay, just move. Because you'll never regret acting with discipline, but you'll always regret surrendering to emotion. The mindset of professionals execute. Amateurs explain. That's the difference. Professionals don't rely on feeling. They rely on systems. They show up when they're sick, tired, stressed, unmotivated, because that's what they trained for. They know emotion can't be trusted. They know consistency is king. You have to become that kind of professional, not in career, but in mindset. A professional of discipline, a professional of execution. You don't wait for the right mood, you create the right momentum. That's the mindset that wins every time. Emotion versus execution. The battle you fight daily. Every morning, you'll face two voices. One says, stay comfortable. The other says, stay consistent. One says, you've done enough. The other says, you're not finished. One says, tomorrow. The other says, now. And that's the daily war, emotion versus execution. The world rewards the one you feed. Feed emotion, you stay average. Feed execution, you become exceptional. That's the daily choice. That's the battlefield of the disciplined mind. The transformation. When you live by execution, everything changes. You stop chasing motivation. It starts chasing you. You stop waiting for results. They start appearing. You stop being emotional about outcomes. You get addicted to process. Because process creates peace. Routine builds confidence. Consistency creates freedom. Emotion wants fast gratification. Execution wants long-term mastery. You can't serve both. Choose mastery. Choose control. Choose discipline. That's how transformation happens. Quietly, daily, relentlessly. The core reminder. Replace emotion with execution. Replace doubt with movement. Replace hesitation with action. Replace weakness with repetition. That's how you win. That's how you grow. That's how you evolve. You don't need to feel it. You just need to do it. Because once you start moving, emotion will follow your lead. That's the secret. That's the system. That's the disciplined mind. You've learned to replace emotion with execution. Now it's time to go even deeper, to build a foundation that doesn't depend on energy or excitement. Because the real warriors don't run on emotion. They run on systems. They run on structure. They run on consistency. Let's build that next. Motivation is a spark. Systems are the fire. And if you depend on sparks, you'll live in darkness half your life. Because motivation comes and goes. Systems don't. Motivation fades when things get hard. Systems don't care. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the strength of your system. That's the truth most people never understand. The illusion of motivation. Motivation feels good. It feels powerful. It makes you believe that you're changing. But motivation is emotional gasoline. High energy, short life. It gets you started, but it never keeps you going. You've felt it before. You watch an inspiring video. You hear a speech that hits your soul. You get fired up. For one day, maybe two. Then it fades. You're back to the same habits, the same distractions, the same excuses, because nothing in your environment changed. Nothing in your system changed. Only your emotion did. And emotion is temporary. That's why you can't build a disciplined life around motivation. You need a structure that holds you accountable when motivation dies. And it will die. That's guaranteed. So stop chasing motivation. Start building systems. Because systems don't ask how you feel. They tell you what to do. The truth about systems. A system is a commitment written in behavior, not in mood, not in words. A system is the rulebook you live by when emotion tries to negotiate. It's the daily process that runs even when you don't want to. Systems are boring. That's why they work. Systems are repetitive. That's why they build mastery. Systems are predictable. That's why they produce consistency. You see, most people want change without repetition. They want results without routine. They want success without structure. But the system is the structure that carries you across the valley when motivation collapses. That's the key. Real-world example. The athlete's routine. Think about elite athletes. They train every day. Same drills, same discipline, same structure. They don't ask, "Do I feel like training today?" They just show up. Why? Because their training isn't optional. It's built into their system. Their entire life is designed around performance. Sleep, diet, training, recovery, all connected, all disciplined. That's why they win. Not because they're more motivated, but because their systems don't rely on motivation at all. You need that level of structure in your own life. Maybe you're not an athlete, but your goals demand the same mindset. If you want emotional control, you need a system. If you want discipline, you need a system. If you want to stop starting over, you need a system. That's the blueprint. Why motivation fails. Motivation makes you reactive. Systems make you proactive. Motivation depends on inspiration. Systems depend on execution. When you live by motivation, you live in cycles, highs and lows, excitement and burnout. Start strong, quit early. That's why you feel stuck. Because you're chasing emotional spikes instead of steady progress. But when you live by systems, you break that cycle. Because your actions don't depend on emotion anymore. It's automatic. You wake up, you execute, you repeat. That's power. And once you experience that level of consistency, you'll never depend on motivation again. How to build your system. Here's the truth. You don't rise to your goals. You sink to your habits. So start there. Step 1. Identify your non-negotiables. What must happen every day, no matter how you feel? That's the backbone of your system. Step 2. Attach your habits to triggers. If you want consistency, link actions to something that already exists in your day. Example. After I brush my teeth, I meditate for 5 minutes. After I eat breakfast, I write my priorities. The brain loves patterns. Give it structure and it will reward you with focus. Step 3. Track it. Not to impress yourself, to expose yourself. If you can't measure it, you can't master it. Your system needs visibility because what gets tracked gets done. Step 4. Adjust, don't quit. When the system fails, don't abandon it. Refine it. Failure isn't feedback about your worth. It's feedback about your process. That's how professionals think. They don't rebuild every time something breaks. They reinforce. That's the difference between emotional effort and systematic growth. Emotion versus system. Emotion says, do it later. System says, do it now. Emotion says, you've done enough. System says, you're not finished. Emotion says, one day. System says, every day. You see the pattern? Emotion negotiates. System commands. Emotion excuses. System executes. You can't serve both. If you live by emotion, you'll always be inconsistent. If you live by system, you'll always be in control. That's the decision that builds a disciplined life. Building emotional independence. Here's what happens when you stop needing motivation. You free yourself. You stop waiting for permission to act. You stop depending on energy to execute. You stop being controlled by your moods. That's emotional independence, and that's rare. Because most people are slaves to how they feel. They can't move unless emotion gives them the green light. But when you live by systems, your light is always green. You move regardless. You progress regardless. That's the foundation of quiet discipline. It's not loud, it's not flashy. It's silent execution, every day without applause. The system protects you. Your system is your armor. It protects you from laziness, distraction, and emotional chaos. When life hits hard, your system keeps you stable. When doubt creeps in, your system keeps you focused. When emotion says stop, your system keeps you moving. You can't control the storm, but you can control your structure. That's what makes you unshakable. That's why disciplined people rarely collapse under pressure. They've built systems strong enough to carry them through. That's the secret few ever learn. Your daily rule. Make your life so structured that emotion becomes irrelevant. Wake up at the same time. Work at the same time. Train at the same time. Reflect at the same time. Not because you're robotic, because you're committed. That's how freedom is built. Freedom doesn't come from doing what you want. It comes from having the strength to do what you must every day. That's the paradox of discipline. That's the foundation of mastery. The transformation. When you live by systems, everything changes. Procrastination dies. Consistency grows. Results compound. You don't chase motivation anymore. You generate momentum. You don't need emotional highs. Like you live in constant progress. You don't seek discipline. You become discipline. That's the transformation. That's what this chapter is about. The core reminder. Motivation is a feeling. Systems are freedom. You can't trust feelings. They change. But you can trust systems. They endure. So stop waiting for motivation to strike. Start building systems that never stop. Because when your life runs on structure, your emotions can no longer sabotage your destiny. That's the ultimate power. That's the quiet strength of discipline. You've built your system. Now it's time to remove the final weakness, the one that drains focus and steals consistency. Because even the strongest system collapses without control of your attention. You've mastered emotion. You've built discipline. Now let's reclaim your focus. Focus is the most valuable currency you own, and every day you give it away for free. You trade it for notifications, you trade it for gossip, you trade it for meaningless noise, and then you wonder why you feel lost, scattered, behind. You wonder why your goals seem far away. You wonder why your life feels like it's on pause. It's not your potential that's missing, it's your focus. You lost it. And now it's time to take it back. The cost of distraction. Distraction is not harmless. It's not small. It's the silent killer of progress. Every time you check your phone mid-task, you don't just lose seconds. You lose momentum. You lose depth. You lose clarity. Distraction fractures your attention into tiny, useless pieces. And what's left is mental noise. That's why you can't think clearly. That's why you can't finish what you start. Because your focus, your power, is constantly leaking away. That's the truth. You can't build a disciplined mind in a distracted world. You can't build peace while your attention is scattered. You have to protect your focus like it's your life. Because in many ways, it is. The myth of multitasking. They told you multitasking was a skill. It's not. It's a weakness disguised as productivity. Multitasking splits your brain's bandwidth. It destroys quality for the illusion of speed. You're not doing more, you're doing worse. And you're training your brain to never go deep. That's why most people can't read a full page without checking their phone. That's why they can't have a conversation without drifting off. They've lost the ability to focus, and they don't even realize it. If you want to be different, you must train yourself to go deep again. One task, one goal, one focus. That's mastery, that's discipline. You don't need to do more. You need to do less, but with absolute focus. That's the key. Real-world example. The sniper's mindset. Think of a sniper, still, silent, controlled. His world narrows to one target, one breath, one moment. That's focus. That's discipline in action. He doesn't rush. He doesn't panic. He blocks everything else out. That's what separates amateurs from professionals, on depth of attention. You might not be holding a rifle, but you're still taking aim every day. At your goals, your craft, your growth. And the question is, are you focusing like a sniper, or are you spraying your attention everywhere, hoping something hits? The answer defines your results. You have a choice. You have a choice. Every day, you decide what owns your attention. You decide whether you focus on growth or gossip. You decide whether you build or scroll. You decide whether you move forward or drift away. No one steals your focus. You give it away. You can reclaim it right now, but it starts with awareness. Stop saying, "I'm too distracted." Start saying, "I've allowed distraction." That's the difference between a victim and a disciplined mind. You don't need more focus, you need fewer leaks. That's the mindset shift that changes everything. How to guard your focus. If you want to protect your focus, build barriers. Create friction between yourself and distraction. Here's how. 1. Control your environment. Clean your workspace. Remove temptation. If it doesn't help you build, it doesn't belong near you. 2. Schedule deep work. Block time where nothing else exists. No phone, no noise, no interruptions. This is sacred time. Protect it like your life depends on it, because your growth does. 3. Silence the noise. Turn off notifications. Delete apps that serve nothing but addiction. Your attention is your power. Stop auctioning it off to algorithms. 4. Train your brain. Meditation, reading, writing. These aren't luxuries, they're mental strength training. They sharpen your ability to sustain focus longer than the world around you. These habits are not small. They are the foundation of self-control. Because every time you resist distraction, you strengthen your willpower. And every time you indulge it, you weaken it. That's how attention works. It's a muscle. Train it. The power of deep focus. When you go deep, everything changes. You see patterns others miss. You produce work others can't match. You make progress others can't explain. Because depth is rare, everyone's chasing quick hits. You're mastering sustained effort. When your focus sharpens, your results multiply, not linearly, but exponentially. Because intensity compounds. That's why the most disciplined people seem unstoppable. Their focus makes time bend in their favor. They accomplish in a day what others can't in a week. Not because they have more hours, but because they waste none. That's focus. That's power. Attention is the new wealth. In this world, attention is the new currency. And most people are broke. They've spent it all, like scrolling, reacting, comparing. Their mental balance is zero. But those who protect their attention, they build mental wealth. They think clearly. They execute precisely. They live intentionally. Because clarity is the real luxury. You can't buy focus. You have to train it, guard it, earn it, every single day. And the disciplined mind does exactly that. It's not about effort. It's about discipline. It's not about how hard you work for 1 hour. It's about how focused you stay for 10 years. Anyone can work hard for a day. Few can stay committed without distraction for a decade. That's why most people never reach mastery. They lose focus before the results appear. Discipline means you keep your eyes locked on the target, even when progress feels invisible, even when it's slow, even when it's quiet. Because you understand one truth. Distraction kills more dreams than failure ever could. You have a choice. Guard your focus or lose your potential. That's it. The system for focus. Here's a system you can apply today. Morning. Start your day without noise. No phone, no messages. Just you and your goals. Midday. Take one focus break. Not to scroll, but to breathe, reflect, reset. Night. Review your day. Ask one question. Where did I waste focus? Then fix it tomorrow. That's a daily discipline. That's how you train your attention to obey you, not the world. It's small but powerful. Because small disciplines done daily create unbreakable focus over time. The return of mental clarity. When your focus returns, life feels different. You think sharper, you move faster, you feel lighter. Because the fog lifts, the noise fades, and for the first time in a long time, you can see clearly again. You realize the truth. You were never broken. You were just distracted. That's the moment you regain control. Not because you worked harder, but because you worked with clarity. That's what this chapter is about. Focus is your life force. Protect it. You can lose money and earn it back. You can lose opportunities and find new ones. But if you lose your focus, you lose yourself. You've built discipline. You've built systems. You've reclaimed attention. Now it's time to build the next level of control. The discipline of stillness. Because a focused mind must also be a peaceful one. The world worships movement. But the masters? They worship stillness. You've been told to hustle, to grind, to keep moving. Every second, every hour. But That noise, it's killing your clarity. Because motion without direction is chaos. Activity without purpose is destruction. And until you learn to be still, you'll never know where you're going. Stillness is not laziness. Stillness is control. Stillness is power restrained. And the disciplined mind knows when to move and when to be absolutely still. The modern addiction to movement. You scroll when you're bored. You check your phone when you're anxious. You fill silence with noise because you're afraid to be alone with your thoughts. That's not productivity. That's escape. You call it staying busy, but it's just distraction disguised as effort. Because constant motion doesn't make you progress. It keeps you running in circles. Ask yourself, when was the last time you sat in silence? Without music, without a screen, without distraction, and just listen to your own mind. Most people can't handle that. They don't want to face the truth hiding under the noise. So they keep moving. They chase busyness to avoid stillness. But here's the truth. If you can't be alone with your mind, you'll never master it. That's the test of discipline. Stillness reveals truth. When you're still, the truth surfaces. Your motives become clear. Your weaknesses appear. Your fears get loud. And that's why most people run from stillness. It exposes them. Stillness is a mirror. It shows you who you really are when no one's watching. But that's exactly why it's powerful. Because awareness is the beginning of control. You can't change what you won't face. You can't master what you won't acknowledge. Stillness gives you the clarity to see your inner chaos and the power to calm it. You have a choice. Keep running from your thoughts or learn to sit with them until they obey you. That's mastery. Real-world example, the commander's pause. Think about elite military leaders, special forces commanders, fighter pilots, crisis negotiators. In chaos, they don't move faster. They slow down. When everything's falling apart, they breathe. They think. They wait. Because action without clarity leads to disaster. And stillness is how they regain control of their mind before they control the battlefield. That's the power of stillness. It creates space between reaction and response. And in that space, discipline lives. The most dangerous people on earth are calm under pressure. Not because they don't feel, but because they've trained themselves to stay still until the right move reveals itself. That's control. You don't need to react. You need to observe. The weak react. The strong observe. You don't need to respond to every comment, every emotion, every event. That's chaos disguised as involvement. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. Sometimes the most powerful move you can make is no move at all. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to chase every fight. You don't need to explain yourself to people who have already made up their minds. That's wasted energy. And your focus is too valuable to waste. Stillness lets you see the storm without becoming it. It allows you to understand before you act. That's not passivity, that's control. And control is power. The science of stillness. Your brain is not built for constant input. It needs silence to organize, to process, to reset. Every moment of stillness repairs your mind. Every breath of calm restores your discipline. That's why meditation works. That's why journaling works. That's why walking without your phone feels so freeing. Because when your mind slows down, your power returns. Stillness resets your nervous system. It lowers anxiety. It strengthens attention. It gives your brain space to recover from overload. You don't need more caffeine. You need more silence. You don't need more stimulation. You need more separation. That's how you rebuild focus in a world addicted to noise. How to practice stillness. Stillness is not complicated, but it's uncomfortable. Here's how you build it. 1. Daily silence. 5 minutes. No sound, no phone. Just sit. Breathe. Let thoughts rise. Don't fight them. Observe, don't react. 2. Reflective journaling. Write your thoughts before they control you. Get them out of your head and onto paper. Clarity through expression. That's the purpose. 3. Controlled breathing. When emotion spikes, still your body first. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. It's not just breath work, it's emotional reset. 4. Digital detox. Schedule moments of disconnection. The world won't fall apart if you go offline, but your mind might fall apart if you don't. Stillness is a skill. Train it like strength. Because it is strength. The paradox of stillness. Stillness looks passive, it looks like nothing. But inside it, transformation is happening. Stillness builds patience. Patience builds wisdom. Wisdom builds power. That's the chain. That's how great minds evolve. When everyone else is chasing noise, you're building depth. When they burn out, you're just getting stronger. That's why the disciplined mind always wins in the long run. Because it knows when to push and when to pause. Remember this, energy without direction destroys itself. Stillness gives energy direction. That's the key. Be the eye of the storm. Life is chaos. You can't change that. But you can become the calm inside it. Be the eye of the storm. The world spins, but you stay centered. That's power. That's presence. When everyone else panics, you breathe. When everyone reacts, you observe. When everyone rushes, you wait. That's how the disciplined mind operates. Not from impulse and from intention. And when you move with precision. Because stillness has sharpened your awareness. That's leadership. That's mastery. Stillness is the source of strength. When your mind is still, your emotions obey. When your emotions obey, your actions align. When your actions align, your results multiply. It all starts with stillness. This is the discipline most people skip. And that's why they collapse under pressure. They have energy, but no control. Ambition, but no clarity. Desire, but no patience. Stillness gives you all three. It gives you the ability to wait without losing faith, to think without overthinking, to act without reacting. That's the real power. The challenge. From today forward, seek silence daily. Don't run from it. Master it. When you feel overwhelmed, don't add more motion. Add stillness. When you feel anxious, don't run faster. Pause. Breathe. Recenter. You'll discover something life-changing. Stillness doesn't stop your growth, it amplifies it. Because when the mind quiets, the truth speaks. And that truth will always guide you better than fear, noise, or pressure. That's the secret of the disciplined mind. You've learned to be still. You've learned to hold your power instead of wasting it. Now it's time to take that inner peace and turn it outward. To channel that control into how you move through the world. Because discipline isn't just what you think. It's what you project. It's how you walk. It's how you lead. You've mastered stillness. Now let's master presence. You walk into a room, and without saying a single word, people feel something. They can't explain it, but they sense it. Authority, calm, control. That's presence. And presence isn't about being loud. It's about being certain. You don't need attention. You command it. Presence is energy, not volume. The world confuses confidence with noise. Everyone's shouting, everyone's posting, everyone's performing. They think presence is about how seen they are. It's not. Real presence is silent power. It's the kind of energy that walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere. Not because you demand respect, but because you embody it. It's the difference between the one who wants to be noticed and the one who doesn't need to be. The loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest, the quietest one. The one who moves slow, breathes calm, speaks less. That's the one people remember. Because presence is control, and control is irresistible. Where presence comes from. Presence doesn't come from your outfit, it doesn't come from your title, it doesn't come from what you own, it comes from what you know. You know who you are, you know what you stand for. You know what you will and will not tolerate. That's the foundation of presence, like clarity. When you're clear inside, people feel it outside. They feel it in your posture. They hear it in your tone. They see it in your eyes. You can't fake that. You can fake confidence for a moment, but presence is built over years of discipline, silence, and truth. Every rep in the gym, every boundary you enforce, every promise you keep to yourself. That's what forges presence. People don't respect words, they respect energy. You can talk all day about who you are like it means nothing. People don't listen to what you say, they feel who you are. Your body language, your focus, your energy, they speak first. When you walk into a room before you open your mouth, people have already decided whether to respect you or dismiss you. It's not about arrogance, it's about alignment. Presence is the alignment between what you say and what you do. When your energy matches your intent, you become undeniable. That's the key. The still mind creates strong presence. Remember the last chapter, stillness. This is where it pays off. The person who's calm under pressure radiates presence. Because the world's chaos doesn't touch them. Their stillness is their signal. Their calmness becomes leadership. When everyone else is reacting, the one who remains composed instantly becomes the anchor. That's why you can't fake presence. It's born from control. The mind that's trained to stay centered commands trust. Stillness built your inner foundation. Presence is that foundation expressed outward. It's the silent message. I'm not here to compete. I'm here to conquer. Calmly real-world example. The commander and the boardroom. Think of a battlefield commander walking through chaos. Bullets flying, radios screaming, yet his steps are measured, his breathing steady, his eyes sharp. Everyone around him is tense, but he's not. And because he's calm, everyone follows. That's presence. Now picture a CEO in a crisis meeting, stocks dropping, investors panicking. He doesn't rush, he doesn't yell. He sits back, observes, speaks once. And when he does, everyone stops talking. Why? Because his presence carries authority. It's not about power, it's about composure under fire. Both the soldier and the CEO have the same trait. Control radiates from them. And people follow control. Always. Your presence is a daily practice. Presence isn't something you turn on when you need it. It's something you train every single day. Every moment is a rehearsal. When you walk, walk with purpose. When you speak, speak with intention. When you listen, listen fully. Be where you are. That's what people feel. Your focus, your awareness, your stillness. That's presence. You don't build it on stage. You build it in solitude. You build it when you hold eye contact instead of looking away. You build it when you breathe instead of react. You build it when you speak last instead of first. Presence is the byproduct of practiced discipline. It's the mirror of how you live when no one's watching. Presence and respect. Respect is not demanded. It's earned through consistency. If you chase validation, you lose presence. If you embody discipline, presence finds you. People respect those who don't need approval, because independence is magnetic. When you know your worth, you stop over-explaining. You stop proving. You stop begging to be understood. That's the turning point. When you realize silence communicates more than arguments ever could. You don't need to raise your voice when your actions speak louder. You don't need to shout when your energy is steady. You don't need to impress when your integrity is visible. That's how you command respect, without a word. The 3 pillars of presence. If you want to build unshakable presence, start here. 1. Eye contact. Not staring, connecting. Hold it, don't flinch. Don't drift. Let people feel that you're fully there. Deuxième posture. Stand tall, shoulders back, chin neutral. Your body tells your story before your mouth does. Third breath. Never let the room control your breathing. Slow it down. Control the pace. When your breath is calm, your presence dominates. That's the discipline of the masters. Breath, posture, focus. It's not a show. It's who they are. Your presence is a reflection of your inner world. If your inner world is chaotic, your energy leaks confusion. If your inner world is calm, your energy commands attention. Presence begins where ego ends. It's not about proving your power, it's about owning it, quietly. People remember how you made them feel, not what you said. And presence makes them feel safe, focused, and inspired. When your energy is steady, others align with it. That's leadership. That's influence. That's control. The challenge. From now on, don't chase attention. Attract it through discipline. Enter every room like you belong there, because you do. Not because you're louder, because you're grounded. Let your silence speak first. Let your energy do the talking, because presence isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. Be the one who moves slow, thinks sharp, and speaks only when necessary. Be the one who doesn't react to chaos, but directs it. That's how you become unforgettable. Because in a world full of noise, stillness wrapped in confidence is magnetic. That's power. That's presence. You've learned to project control. You've learned to lead without force. Now it's time to talk about the fuel that keeps all of it alive. The invisible current that separates the disciplined from the drifting. The next chapter will show you how to master that current. You've built presence. Now let's build momentum. This is your training. Every reaction you resist is 1 rep stronger. Every storm you face calmly makes you untouchable. The disciplined mind doesn't chase validation. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need peace. It creates it. You are no longer controlled by chaos. You are the calm inside it. You don't beg for motivation. You act. You don't explain your peace. You embody it. Remember this. Control is not built in comfort. It's built in crisis. When everything falls apart again, and it will, breathe, stand still, and remember who you've become. Because the disciplined mind doesn't just survive the storm, it becomes the storm.